8 years ago, I was buried in $20,000 of student loan debt, but last year I made $77,431 in passive income. So in this video, I'm gonna break down exactly where that money came from and the 3 most important lessons that I learned along the way. And I'll even share the simple spreadsheet that I use to track everything so you can start building your own passive income today, even if you're starting from zero or in debt like I was. To start, I'm gonna show you why most people struggle to build passive income in the first place. So have you ever wondered how an apple grows on a tree? So when you walk through an orchard or an apple farm, those trees are filled with ripe, juicy apples. But behind that effortless appearance is a hidden truth. It takes years of care and patience and consistent effort for an apple tree to produce fruit. If you plant an apple seed today, it could actually take 6, 8, or even 10 years before you see the first apple. But during those years, you still have to water regularly, protect it from pests, prune damaged branches, and patiently wait as the tree slowly grows. And none of this looks glamorous or exciting. It's just quiet, patient, and steady work. But without it, you'll never taste a single apple. So how does this relate back to passive income? So people hear about the phrase passive income and imagine money just magically appearing in their bank account. And they just picture lounging on the beach, sipping a drink while cash just effortlessly flows in. But that's not reality, at least not at first. So just like planting an apple tree, building passive income starts with a lot of upfront effort. You have to plant the seeds. So in that case, you have to learn how to budget, research investments, set up automated accounts, and just track your finances. And you might even spend months or even years feeling like you're working so hard with little to show for it. At least that's how I felt when I first got started, especially when I was budgeting my spendings, reading the investment books, and setting up multiple accounts to automate my savings. It was just tedious and sometimes just frustrating and definitely didn't feel passive at all at that moment. But I trusted the process, knowing that each step was laying the foundation for something much, much bigger. And eventually, just like the apple tree, my effort began to bear fruit. Income started to flow in without constant management, and I could finally step back and enjoy the results of what I've done in the beginning. But that still took a couple of years to even feel that way. So here's what most people miss. The reason why passive income works is precisely because so few people are willing to put in that upfront effort. They understandably want that shortcuts or quick fixes and those instant results, and when those things don't really happen, they just give up. But the ones who succeed are the ones that embrace the slow, steady growth. So how can you apply this? Start by shifting your mindset and recognize that early stage that you're in right now is essential. So every dollar that you save, every investment that you research, and every financial habit that you build, all of these actions are like you planting the seeds, watering them constantly, and then protecting them and trusting that your effort is building towards something truly rewarding later on. Next, I'll show you what most people completely overlook when they first start investing. So let me ask you, have you ever thought about how a brick house is built? You start with one brick, then another, and another. And at first, it looks like nothing, certainly not a house. And it feels very slow and repetitive, like you're making no progress at all. But every brick that you lay counts. And if you stay consistent with every brick, then they become the foundation of your house. Then slowly you have a wall, then a roof, and eventually you look up and you've built a house. And that didn't take overnight, but brick by brick. So how does this help when you first start investing? When I first started investing, I didn't have a huge amount of savings or a 6-figure salary. I didn't win the lottery. I wasn't even early on Bitcoin or Tesla. All I had was a commitment to lay small financial breaks every day. So I started with $50 here, $100 there, investing regularly in simple ETFs and mutual funds. And people often ask me, how much do you need to start investing? Honestly, not so much. You can even get started with just $5. What matters more is the habit, the willingness to stay consistent even when the results are invisible. My first returns were just pennies, but those pennies became dollars, and then hundreds of dollars, and then thousands. And eventually my investments generated more income than I used to spend in a year. And even if you take a look at my spreadsheet, you can see that there's no jackpot, no windfall, just small decisions stacked over time. But if you're starting from scratch, you're not behind, and in fact, you're in the perfect place to begin. Because building wealth isn't about having a lot. It's about just staying consistent, laying one brick at a time. But how do you speed up the growth of your investments over time? Now let's go back to the apple tree example for a moment. Now imagine planting an apple seed, and after a few years of patience and care, your tree finally produces its first fruits. Now, you could simply eat those apples and enjoy the fruits of your labor, but what if instead of eating all those apples and throwing it out, what if you actually saved some of those seeds and then planted them? Over time, you wouldn't just have that first apple tree that you started with. You would have an entire orchard. So the more apples you reinvest back into your field, the faster your orchard grows. Soon, instead of that single tree, you would have dozens or even hundreds of trees producing fruits year after year. And this is exactly how reinvesting works with your investments. For example, today my investments generate over $77,000 per year in passive income, but that didn't happen overnight. It just grew steadily because I consistently reinvested it back in. In the beginning, your passive income might feel small and unpredictable, and it'll be tempting to spend the little bit that you earn. But if you resist the urge and reinvest instead, something powerful happens where your income stabilizes and compounds steadily over time. It'll snowball into something that you would have never imagined. And as promised, I'll talk about where all of that passive income came from and just focus more on the 3 accounts where that majority of that passive income came from. So the third biggest growth that I got was in my Vanguard Roth IRA, with $15,878 coming in, where it grew from $24,821 to $40,698 in just 1 year. And the second biggest passive income came from my 401k with my first employer, where it grew by $21,689 from $78,170 to $99,860. And the biggest passive income came from my Vanguard brokerage account with $21,773, growing from $64,284 to $86,057. Again, it wasn't like this at all for a long time. And you can see that I started with a negative $13,000 with $19,000 coming from my student loans. So even if you're starting off your passive income journey today from zero, you're just much better off than I was. So make sure you start tracking your numbers with the net worth spreadsheet. So now that you know exactly how I built up $77,000 in passive income, knowing what to do is only half the battle, which is just as important as knowing what not to do. In fact, there are 3 common middle class habits that's keeping most 9-to-5 employees stuck financially. And there's a good chance that you're making some of these mistakes right now without even realizing it. So watch this video next to find out exactly what they are and how you could avoid them.